Hey friend, it's me Vasco with a quick announcement. We at the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast are organizing this year's Scrum Master Summit. For tickets and details on the summit, check out the URL bit.ly/SM Summit 22. All one word, SMSUMMIT 22. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday Leading Change episode this week with Luis Carvalho. Hi, Luis. Welcome back.
Hi, Vasco. Very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Luis, on Wednesdays, we talk about change leadership. Many people like to call it change management. I would rather call it change leadership because it is about establishing a direction, establishing the motivation and the infrastructure for change to happen, rather than managing what will happen within change. But that's just my perspective, of course. And as Scrum Masters, in any case, we need to work with change. Sometimes we are part of a change management framework that somebody else brought in and we are just part of it. Sometimes we actually need to start the change, whether it is team, organizational, or even personal level. So, Luis, share with us one of those stories of a change process you were involved with. Walk us through how that happened and also highlight for us the tips, the tricks, the techniques, and the tools you learned back then that you still apply today.
I mean, this has happened to me more than once, and I think it is common nowadays, which is scale, right? So when you move from being a small group of people or one or two teams or even a prototype, and it gets successful or gets interest, and now you need to scale this. Another pattern that I've noticed, I don't know if it's just been my experience or if this is common also, there's a big delta. So to give you an idea, there was also one big project that I was working in, and we had a very, very clear picture what we wanted for the first live, for the go live. What is our first version? I would call it a bit beyond MVP because it had already some industrialization in there. But what is going to be our first offer in the market? And I think everybody, we weren't that much. We were around 4 teams in technology, plus some partners. And we all had a very, very clear picture of what was going. So we were all very focused. We were working actually quite efficiently because we all knew where we wanted to get. Once, of course, we got it out, we got our first commercial offering out in the market, babysitting, et cetera. But of course, this proposition then grew, right? So this is the first thing that we're going to do. But now we want to grow it. We want to offer new services on top of this. We want to offer new products, et cetera. But there's always that glitch. I have a sense that you get a now what moment, right? Where you lose all of that focus that is coming. And I guess also a bit of that comes out of tiredness. So there's a bit of ventilation period. But afterwards, it gets all very fuzzy, right? So we know that there's new things coming. We know that there's a new area of business that we want to tackle, but there's no focus. Our North Star is now more of a constellation. There's no more North Star.
So it was also a change of business for the team. It was not just a new product. Is that what you mean?
So it was a product. So it's more than just a product. It's kind of a product initiative, right? And you start with a small piece, but then of course you don't want to just sell that. You want to sell services on top of it. You want to sell new products, new shifts within that proposition, so to say.
How does this affect the team? I can imagine that, the first thing that comes to mind is that this might be a big change for the product owners in that context. Is that where the gap started to show, like what happened next?
Yeah, so I think it's a change overall on the organization, right? So first, because as the product evolves, you need to revamp also your organization, right? So what are your functional units? What are they in charge of? What are teams going to work on? Et cetera, is going to be revamped, right? So you need to redo this exercise of finding again your North Star, or finding again what are your propositions, what are your value streams, et cetera. Until you do that, right, the teams are a bit in the limbo, so to say. So we're building things, we're taking the opportunity for some tech debt, we're strengthening certain processes, certain things, but they get a bit in the limbo. Right, so you lose that focus. We were sharp focuses on building something, and then you know something is coming. Even I think in from a motivation perspective, right? You don't understand when is the next big thing. As you mentioned, Vask, sometimes you need to force this, right? So you need to raise this message to the organization saying, look, we're a bit lost now. So we don't know where the product is going. We don't know what is coming next. What are the more important milestones? We need to work together with the product owners, with the product group, with the leadership to understand when is the next, how does the previous objective now transverse into a scaled organization, right? So we were doing things like proposition canvas.
The value proposition canvas, I believe.
Yes. Within this initiative, what are the new products? What are the new services that we can build on top of this to tackle customers' pains, customers' gains, etc., etc. We had to revamp the value streams. So, for example, to give you an example, we had teams that were mainly working with partners like Samsung, partners like hardware providers and things like that, right? So, for example, in that case, you didn't really need much of development capabilities. You need more kind of vendor management or partner management. And we needed to revamp our governance because now we started to be more, not just more, but we started to have different areas of responsibility, right? So we were talking with different people for different topics.
I don't know if that's what you meant it as, but this also raises the thought in my mind that at that moment the change was not a ways of working change only. I mean, it included that because, as you said, you needed to bring in, partner management as an example, as a thing that you need to focus on now. But it also sounds to me like both an organizational change, and that you refer to already, right? We need to reshape the organization, but also as a mission change, meaning that as an organization, we're not only restructuring, but our direction is now different. We're doing different things. And it sounds to me that it's like these three major change aspects here, like the ways of working, the organization, as well as the mission, were coming together at the same time. Is that how you saw it?
A little bit. So the mission in itself, probably not much of a change. So to say, the why we exist was sort of kept, but how you would go about it, what kind of products and services you would go about it, that was changing. Yes. Yeah, as you mentioned, so this was all coming together and it was coming in late. That was the idea, right? So we had the big launch, we had that cool-off period, if you want to call it. But after that, so we knew that we needed the bigger organization to do more. We had plans to do more, but we didn't really know what this more was.
Yeah, and this is actually a very good point. And it's not necessarily even easy in a medium or even large size business to have that very well defined. I have found that, at least in my career, very often somebody comes up with an idea, whether it's the CEO or the CTO or the CPO or whatever that might be. Somebody comes up with an idea, and then it takes a long time for that idea to kind of trickle through the organization and be translated into practical things. And it sounds to me that this is perhaps one example of that type of change, right? Where maybe there's even a clear vision somewhere in the organization, but that the communication and translation of that vision is not being handled as a change process.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, when you have this at the higher level, it's always very abstract, so to say, right? And you do need, as you mentioned, to trickle it down, to put the proper structures in place, to translate that into a reality, to translate that into propositions that you want to give to your customers.
Yeah, and sometimes this problem might come up at the level where we are, right? Like in the team level, working with the team or a couple of teams, and we start to see this gap, if you will. But that also highlights how important it is for us to think of ourselves as not just agents, but change leaders, right? Because we need to then bring up the gap and say, okay, so let's work with, I don't know, product or work with business to figure out what we are actually trying to do in the context of what we have set up. Because in your case, the mission was still the same, and you had even a launch already, but now you needed to rearrange how you thought about what the mission meant in practice.
something as simple as roadmap prioritization was something that, for example, product owners were not ready for, right? So they were very good in understanding their own proposition, but how does this fit with the rest? Because now you're not alone, right? You still have a finite bandwidth to develop things, right? And you always come into this big fight, like mine is more priority than yours, and et cetera, right? And you don't want this to reach the teams, right? You want to have a big prioritized initiative backlog, right? That whenever you come to these things, whenever you want to come to these trade-offs, it should be a simple decision, right? And not take ages and then escalate. And why aren't they doing this for me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So even organizing the product owners and the product initiative for them to be able to roadmap constantly and to talk with each other to understand, okay, if during implementation there comes a clash and we need to make a trade-off between what we do first, we need to have this always ready before it reaches the teams, for example. Things as such, that they never had to face before. And I was there. And while you don't sort out this problem, there's always a big delay. There's always a big thing. Teams don't understand what's going on. They don't know what is coming. They can't present a roadmap, et cetera, et cetera. So, you always get in a bit in a limbo and a lot of uncertainty, which I think also hurts a bit of motivation.
Hence why we really need to look at these things also as a change process. We need to lead from the front. Thank you very much for sharing this story with us, Luis.
Thank you, Vasco.
Hey friends, it's Vasco again, now with a bit longer announcement. I'm part of the team that is behind the Global Scrum Master Summit, the conference dedicated to the Scrum Master role. If you're a Scrum Master, the Scrum Master Summit is a place to learn, to share, and of course to meet new friends. We will have lots of live sessions where you can meet and network with other Scrum Masters from the whole globe. So make sure you check it at bit.ly/SM Summit 22. We have several amazing keynotes and 7 tracks that feature people like you and of course thought leaders sharing their insights, their knowledge, and helping you become an awesome Scrum Master. You can check out all of the details of the summit, including the keynotes announced, the track chairs, and much more at bit.ly/SM Summit 22. That's all one word. That's bit.ly/SM SUMMIT and the numeral 22. I'll see you on the conference floor.